The New England Cartel, primarily consisting of Mathews Calvin Carter, Boston's Rob Font, and coach-manager Tyson Chartier, is more than just a team. It's a vision, a movement, and a culture. Both fighters incorporate exciting, gritty fighting styles, paired with charismatic yet genuine personalities. Casual MMA fans, for lack of a better word, buy into highlight reel finishes and marketing-driven hype jobs. Sugar Sean O'Malley, cough cough. Hardcore MMA fans are captivated by unrivaled technique and authenticity. Let me hit you with the Calvin Carter quote quickly from his interview with Brendan Shaw on the Food Truck Diaries.
Trying to go
So
out.
you're fighting for what? Respect?
Yeah, no, just trying to get better things for me and my family, you know? I think that's what most people are trying to do. And nothing more dangerous than someone fighting for purpose, you know? So.
Does this sound like a man speaking with a false confidence and a boosted ego? These men personify what I deem Boston to represent: hard work, family orientation, and humility. Boston's third team, as they're affectionately known, has taken off at a rapid pace, and I for one don't see them slowing down anytime soon. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the New England Cartel. Who are they, what made them, and why I am so enthralled in the movement. When you think Calvin Carter, the first thing that comes to mind is probably his boxing, which is why I think a fun little fact not many would be aware of is his high school wrestling background, which from there led him into boxing and explains his wicked takedown defense. As a young adult and through his career, he would also start fighting under Combat Zone, which is a New England promotion, which funnily enough, he would end up owning and running. This leads us to UFC 214. Then UFC staple, now veteran, Andre Philly is set to fight Doo Ho Choi. 2 weeks out, Choi pulls out, leaving none other than New England's finest, Calvin Carter, to step up and debut on short notice. Bookies favoured Philly almost 3-1, something that Carter's family and friends couldn't believe and took big advantage of according to a few stories I've read. Calvin's debut couldn't have gone any better, displaying his incredibly tight boxing and dominating Philly to a decision win purely off the back of his long rangefinder jab, which in my opinion is close to the best on the whole roster. This would soon become a staple in Carter's game, keeping distance with his jab or using his signature step-in jab, as I call it. We all know you're supposed to move your front foot forward when throwing the jab, but he accentuates it even more, like a little skip, a lot of the time catching his opponent off guard, which is then followed up with a straight right on the button. Cue the Ricardo Lamas sequence.
I'm seeing that.
Calvin almost seems so confident with his defensive guard when he throws this skip jab, he almost slides in with the jab, or even sometimes a double jab, with his right hand guarding the right side of his chin and his left shoulder blocking the left side. The technique behind this is just madness. From there we travel to Moscow for UFC Fight Night Moscow, Carter versus Zabit. Not even going to embarrass myself with the last name attempt. What was originally a co-main slot was promoted to the main scrap of the night when JDS vs Volkov fell out. However, the fight stayed a 3-round affair, which many went into the bout with questions surrounding. Zabit came out and did what Zabit does: unorthodox, creative kung fu striking that many struggle to deal with and react to. I think this is really where the penny dropped for most UFC fans, and when Carter really started to progress. Even though he lost the decision, it was clear that if the fight was a normal main event, he would have just beaten one of the most enigmatic fighters in the featherweight division and would have had a top 5 ranking next to his name. One other weapon I want to point out quickly for Carter that I believe is incredibly underrated is his uppercut. We've all seen that closing sequence for Carter vs Hurricane Shane Burgos. In the Zabit fight, it was the game-changing strike. It was clear to see that Zabit was biting on Carter's jab feints and ducking into it. Carter read this multiple times, once in round 2 where he hit him with a left uppercut followed by a right uppercut. And round 3 was no different, versus a more tired Zabit, with multiple uppercuts landing cleanly. And to be honest, if it went much longer, I could have seen a finish coming similar to the Burgos sequence. Was his fight in Moscow a loss? Yes, but that's about as good as they come. From there, we knew something was changing. The New England Cartel movement had ramped up and something had changed, and 2020 could not have summed this up any better. Do I have to even mention how much of a shitstorm this year was? There was really only 2 good things to come out of this year. First, the UFC's shining example of how to run an organisation in a questionable situation, aka a global pandemic. And second, the New England Cartel taking the fuck over. With Rob Font riding a 2-fight win streak against good competitors and sitting out indefinitely with a knee injury, we saw Calvin with 2 dominant wins first up. The first was the absolute hellbow knockout of the hardest hitting 150 favourite Jeremy Stephens, probably one of the most underrated KOs of the year. I also just want to point out, if that hook connects, I don't think Stephens ever wakes up. The second win was a dominant, grinding 5-round decision over a surging Dan Ige on Fight Island. Kadar's incredibly crisp boxing offense and tight defense was too much for Ige to handle. Fast forward a few months and we finally get to see the return of Rob Font versus Magic Marlon Moraes after almost 12 months out, and what a return it was. We saw Font not only hold his own as a brown belt against a high-level black belt in BJJ on the ground, but as soon as this got to the feet, it was all over. What is it with the cartel and that lethal jab? Initially, Font landed a few jabs, which you could see visually Moraes reacted to, either snapping his head back or kind of looking off, before getting wobbled by the jab with a follow-up jab and then an uppercut dropping him, before being finished off by brutal ground and pound elbows and punches. This fight arguably could have been stopped 10 seconds earlier, but this was just beautiful fucking violence from Font, finishing a top contender within 4 minutes and earning himself a 50k bonus and a huge next fight. So that quick trip down memory lane has led us to present time, and where does this leave us? Well, Calvin has a fight in 1 week against future Hall of Famer Max Holloway in one of the most highly touted fights of the year. They say styles make fights, and it doesn't get much better than this. An absolute boxer's delight. I've been going back and forth on it for weeks, and to be honest, I still can't decide how it's going to go. Max does have the volume output edge, the class experience, and more 5-round versatility. However, Calvin's power, the evolution in his game, and the wave the cartel are riding, you just know that this is going to be a pleasure to watch. I think an interesting fact to know that is Holloway is one of 4 fighters who have absorbed over 900 strikes and been knocked down for a total of 0 times. That's incredible durability, but it has to come crashing down at one point, and I think if there's anyone in the featherweight division that can crack it, I think it's Calvin. A win against Holloway would leave him in a prime position for either a number 1 contender fight and possible rematch with the Dagestani Wizards a bit, or possibly even a title fight. And where does Rob Font lie after that destruction of Moraes? Well, our social media would tell us he's calling for a fight with TJ Dillashaw, but then again, who isn't? Unfortunately, I don't think Font will get the first crack at TJ. To me, Jose Aldo will lay claim to that. I don't want to see him fight back down the rankings, but to be honest, there isn't much in front of him that currently makes sense timing-wise. If we have a quick look at the rankings, Font currently sits at number 5, with number 4, Frankie Edgar, number 3, Cody Garbrandt, number 2, Corey Sandhagen, Aljo at 1, and Peter Yan the champion. Frankie and Corey are obviously fighting, Aljo and Yan are already fighting. It only leaves Cody that makes sense, and to be honest, that's a crazy matchup. I think with Cody's power and Rob's durability, that would just be incredible. P.S. Dana, if you're listening, we'd love a gig at the UFC. Tell Sean Shelby, he's done, his time's up. No matter what the outcome, it's clear that we aren't alone when we say that the New England Cartel is on the rise. 2021 is set to be their biggest year yet, and we can't wait to see how it turns out. Thanks guys for tuning in. This is our first upload of a deep dive series where we explore things that intrigue or provoke us within the MMA scene. If there's any questions you guys have, please feel free to leave them below in the comment section or over on our Instagram, which is @descendant.mma. We do full card picks, fight breakdowns, little montage clips, and much more. If you could take 2 seconds to leave a like or even a share, it would help us out so much. Cheers for watching and see you soon.